All right, welcome to the DAG monthly meeting for August. We're talking about the Southeast Asian market down FDR Park today. I appreciate everybody joining us. My name is Eli Storch. I chair the Design Advocacy Group. When we're in person, as we sometimes are and will be again soon, we go around the room and say hi to everybody and introduce ourselves. So if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, and let's say, why don't you share with us your favorite market, present company excluded, of course, that you've attended, so we can all research those markets and check them out as we all say hi to each other this morning. If you have any audio, any technical difficulties, you can message me. You can message Nika Faulkner, our wonderful DAG fellow, and we'll do our best to help you out today. So as we get started, if you have any events, any advocacy items, anything going on in the world that you want to share with us, please throw it in the chat. I'll ask you to unmute and share a little bit about it, or if there's any links you want to share with us. But why don't we do a couple of advocacy items that are on the DAG agenda. Kat, do you want to go first and talk a little bit about what we're doing with Hilco?
Yeah, so some of you might have been at our Hilco meeting last month where they presented their plan, and the chat was very active. There were so many more questions than they could actually answer. So we went through all those notes and sent a consolidated list of questions to Hilco and asked for their responses. Those questions are now posted on the DAG website, and we will update all of you and update the website when we get answers back from them. So take a look. There's some good questions in there.
Yeah, we appreciate Mia Fioravanti from Hilco being open to following up on those. So hopefully we'll get some good responses to those in the very near future. George, let me throw it your way. Talk a little bit about the DAG statement on the Sixers and a couple other things.
Absolutely. I'll get to the Sixers in just a moment. Just a couple of short news pieces. Once again, things heat up politically in Germantown over two very important buildings that have been vacant for many, many years. The Germantown so-called Town Hall, which is owned by PIDC, I understand, and the Germantown YWCA, which has been vacant for a long time and is owned by the Redevelopment Authority. And some members of the community are criticizing the councilwoman for choices that they feel have led to a delay in the redevelopment of these buildings. The town hall is probably the harder building to redevelop because it doesn't lend itself to housing. It's sort of based on a little bit on the Mercantile Exchange or down at the in the old city, and it's a lovely building. The Y does lend itself to housing and is a very large building as well, and at a prominent, and they're both on very prominent sites. Does someone else have a comment on that?
No, go ahead, George.
Okay. Then an update on UC Townhomes. As you know, unlike the Sixers, we got no action from the mainstream press on our various efforts with UC Townhomes. But as a result of our efforts, they invited me to help them on a pro bono basis at the moment, anyway, in their discussions with the city related to design. And the group met with Kelvin Jeremiah about a month ago, maybe it was 5 weeks ago. Kelvin Jeremiah, the head of the Philadelphia Housing Authority. The city, as far as I know, has not yet appointed a point person for their response, which the settlement requires the city to build 70 units of housing, something that they would not do as a direct city project through an RFP to a developer, or possibly in conjunction with the housing authority, which in itself would probably farm that out to a developer. So that's there is progress, and the residents are beginning to get some of the cash settlement that was part of that deal as well. Of course, the big news that we're all aware of, I think, is that the Inquirer picked up our carefully crafted piece on the Sixers arena, and it became a big issue yesterday. It's a continuing issue. There's been a lot of response, some of it a little bit heated on both sides of the coin, and we're not backing off, and we're not walking away from this issue, having made one statement. At the end of September, we'll be hosting Inga Saffron, who will be talking about her opinions and analysis of the arena and eastern part of Market Street. And without a firm date, but under development, is an invitation for the Sixers themselves to present in October.
Yeah, George, Marshall will share a little more on that in a minute.
Okay, I'll stop right there. There may be some comments or questions.
One thing I did want to clarify for those of you who are on here and for the record is that these advocacy pieces are published by the steering committee of DAG. We appreciate everyone who is on here and consider folks who attend DAG meetings as DAG members. The letter is signed as the steering committee of DAG, and there was a little bit of question of who that opinion spoke for. And I just wanted to clarify that the steering committee of DAG is the ones who signed that letter, and that's who it comes from. So with this Sixers topic being so front of mind for much of the city right now, we do have the next 2 months we're going to dedicate to the discussion of the urban design specifically. So Marcia, you want to give the exact dates of those? And you're muted, Marcia.
There you go. Okay, I'm here. Thanks, Eli. So we're thrilled that Inga Saffron will be speaking at our September 28th meeting. As you all know, she's the architecture critic for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And for more than 20 years, Inga has been a forceful advocate for meaningful design, accessible public spaces and transit, affordable housing, historic preservation, and policies that make our city more livable. Obviously, the proposed Sixers Arena is of great interest to her. Inga's work has been recognized with numerous awards, including a Pulitzer Prize for Criticism, the Vincent Scully Prize from the National Building Museum, a Loeb Fellowship from Harvard's Graduate School of Design, and a Guggenheim Fellowship. And all this is very impressive. You've probably already read Inga's recent opinion piece in the Inquirer, in which she writes, as George earlier indicated, about the success of East Market on the south side of Market Street. And that this project with its mixed use dynamic streetscape shows that a Sixers Arena isn't the only way to revitalize East Market Street. So please join us and jump into a very current and controversial discussion, and then also mark your calendar for October 19th. That's already been confirmed, when David Edelman, the part owner and the developer of the Sixers, will be joining us. That's it.
Thank you, Marcia. I'm eager for those conversations. I think that, there are so many issues at play with the stadium. From DAG's perspective, we engage with design quality, design equity, and I think it's important to get as many voices on that as we can. So I appreciate the Sixers' willingness to come and present their designs and have a detailed conversation and Q&A with us, as well as Inga pointing out, she's going to be focusing on some specific design elements and strategies that we should be focusing on as we review and critique it, through our eyes as a design community. So that was yesterday. It was quite a day. We appreciate everyone being here. Let's dive right in. So I'm going to turn it over to Tavis Dockwiller, who is one of our steering committee members at DAG, do our introductions, and then we'll get into today's program.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming out. As you know, we're here to talk about the Asian market, and we are here with Justin DiBerardinis. But Sarun Chang wasn't able to join us as he wasn't feeling well. So we're really honored to welcome three board members from the Vendors Association, and they do more than that, of course. We have Naren Chin, Pang Seng, and Katsi Velafan. I think that really speaks to the spirit of the market. One person hits a bump and three people swoop right in to help everything carry on. So today we're going to hear everyone share lessons for the innovative partnership that's allowed the Southeast Asian market to bloom, thrive, and continue. And we're going to talk, I think, a little bit about the decades-long journey towards recognition and a permanent home in the iconic FDR Park. So Justin, I'd like to start with you. You are the director of the FDR Park for Philadelphia Parks and Rec. I know you're a lifelong Philadelphian with a really deep passion for democratizing the power of public space. And I know you have lots of community service behind you that has put you in this unique position to really help move this project forward. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah.
And then if you would be kind, introduce everyone else so they can say a few words.
Thank you, Dag, for having me back. I was able to present to this group when I worked at Bartram's a number of years ago, but I'm happy to be sharing about our work again here now that I'm the director of FDR Park. My background is in community organizing. My career started in the Kensington and Eastern North Philadelphia sections of Philadelphia. That's where I grew up. And I transitioned into a career in public space at Bartram's Garden and now at FDR Park. I feel that I've always tried to bring those organizing principles to public space work. And at FDR Park, I've just been so blessed to have an opportunity to, one, work with this rising generation of Philadelphia Southeast Asian community leaders who you're going to hear from today. Just an incredible cohort of leaders. And I would say a bunch of other folks on this DAG call that I do just want to point out. Both Andy Toy from the Friends of FDR, I know has been a longtime DAG member. I don't think we would have this market project where it is without that, without his constant support. Barbara Capozzi from the Friends of FDR, who I know is no stranger to this forum. Barbara has been a strong supporter of the park, of the community, and of this push for the Southeast Asian market. I believe we have Jimmy Anafrio from the Commerce Department on the call. Gigantic support from Commerce. Jenny Nam, one of our founding vendors in the market, also now with the Commerce Department on the call today. So like, as I'm just looking at these faces, I'm seeing this huge community of folks who have made this dream, really a dream a few years ago, start to be real, become possible. And it's just really exciting to be one part of this really dynamic community journey. But with that, I'd like to kick it over to one of my fellow presenters today, and that's Katsi Velafan with the Cambodian Association of Philadelphia and other things.
Thanks, Justin. Hi, I'm Katsi Velafan. My official title is Southeast Asian Outreach Network Community Cultivator. I have to say it every time. My position was one of the first paid staff positions for the Southeast Asian market. And so that just goes to show that we've come a long way from just being like a secret market to now we have, this partnership with organizations and also staff who are here to make sure that the market doesn't go away. Is this the part where I present, or I'm just introducing myself?
Let's introduce Peng and Naren
Sure.
first.
Okay. Okay, so I'm not a board member, actually. I am an employee of CGP. I work with Sarun Chan. And so I'm going to pass it over to our board members, which includes Peng Sang, the president, and Naren Chin, who's the vice president.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Good morning. Just want to say thank you for having us on here, and also want to send prayers out to Sarun for his illness. Hopefully he gets better later on today. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing us to get this space as well, too. This wouldn't be possible without collective partnership from the Cambodian Association of Greater Philadelphia and Justin DiBerardinis from the Parks and Recs, and all like what Justin had mentioned, the Commerce Department, Jenny Nam, and also Jimmy, as well as Barbara and Andy Toy from the Friends of FDR. My name is Nuran. I'm the Vice President of the Vendor Association here at the Southeast Asian Market. And also my background is in grassroots organizing. Previously to that, I was co-director of One Love Movement, an organization that helped create the most progressive policy in the city of Philadelphia here, Sanctuary City Policy. And in my involvement in working with a network of immigrants and refugee communities and allies of different organizations, we are at this space where we want to move forward and making sure that there economic prosperity and opportunity for underserved and marginalized communities. Thank you.
So I think now we're going to get the presentation up, right?
Yeah.
So I know, oh, it's like magic.
Well,
Yes. So Sarun did share with me the presentation last night, so I am familiar with it. I hope he was able to finish what he could finish before he decided that he couldn't make it today. But I'm going to do my best. And to Tavis's point about, people stepping in. Yes, it's true. Being children of refugees, we're very used to the idea that things don't always turn out the way it's supposed to be, and then you just kind of had to adapt. So again, this is a presentation that Sarun put together, and because he is ED of the Cambodian Association, there's going to be a little bit of history about the Cambodian American refugee community here, from their immigration. There's resettlement in Philadelphia, and then with the Southeast Asian Market and FDR Park. So if we can go to the first slide. I don't know if there's work. Hold on.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So some people know, some people don't know. So we'll just let you know. A lot of the resettlement of Cambodian refugees was a result of both the Vietnam War, which was a neighboring country, and also the Cambodian genocide, the Civil War with Khmer Rouge. And so a lot of that resettlement happened during the later 1970s and early 1980s. And as well as Lao and Vietnamese refugees who were also going through their own civil wars in their own respective countries at the same time. And so a lot of the resettlement happened together in the same camps. So a part of that history is, how the market started with these specific groups of people. Next slide. So the top 4 cities where there are Khmer communities will be Long Beach in California, Lowell, Massachusetts, and Seattle and Philadelphia. And so Long Beach and Lowell, you put Los Angeles and Boston because some people, they don't know where Long Beach is, and some people have never heard of Lowell. So we kind of have to say the next big metropolis city just to let people know, where those places are. Next slide. So being refugees of war, there's a lot of challenges that, when refugees resettled, things that weren't there for them. So there's a lot of mental health and wellness. There wasn't, well, I'll just go down and then I'll just talk a little bit. And Nuran, feel free to jump in. Mental health and wellness, war, trauma, and PTSD. Disturbances in education, low literacy between Khmer and English languages, racial discrimination, ethnic intimidation, gang activities, addiction manifested. There's cultural push and pull between, being American, being immigrant, generational gaps between the elders who, wanted to keep the culture and, the ones who were being born, who were growing up in America and trying to be more Americanized. And of course, surviving through poor work conditions. So a little bit a little context to that is that as refugees were resettled, there wasn't quite a perfect protocol in resettling refugees. I think it was sort of the idea of like, okay, here you are, here's some English words, here's $300, here's how to sign up for welfare, good luck. And so they were sort of left on their own to figure it out. And a lot of times, because there wasn't support in mental health and literacy and things like that, we sort of had to turn towards each other. And sometimes there was a lot of gang violence because we couldn't depend on the American government who brought us here. We sort of had to defend for ourselves. And so I would say that a lot of the challenges were unique to the age group. So like a lot of times the elders felt isolated because there wasn't anybody to help translate. There wasn't any way to find resources, to find the doctors, to find, where to find work, where to go shopping for food, and, what kind of foods there were. So those are sort of the very initial challenges faced early on by the early refugees who settled in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then Naren, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Cassie. As Cassie had mentioned about, our communities, Southeast Asian community relied on each other, in speaking on the different bullet points of about, since our displacement from war, being resettled here in Philadelphia and all across all the major city, many and, majority of, again, the local government, the state government, and also the federal government failed our Southeast Asian community, right? And this is what it impacts us on the ground is basically all the the major points that Cassie had mentioned. One specifically is big on like racial discrimination that resulted in us being bullied as kids and as an adult. Both President Peng and me, we all experienced the whole school to prison pipeline. We got involved in gang activity, like many of the majority of our Southeast Asian community, because of failed leadership within our, our city and our state and government, education as well too, that got us caught up in school to prison pipeline for us to defend our community. And many other places around, like for us being in poverty, don't have any, money to pay for food, and we were resulting to like really find creative ways in sustaining our community to have a roof on top of our head and a hot plate to eat. And Payne, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, it's basically like when you came, it's like when Running Cassie was saying, finding translation, finding folks to translate for us was kind of hard because we were the ones that were going to the welfare office, to the doctors at a young age of like 7, 8, maybe younger than that, and we were the one that were translating for our parents to basically translate for our parents to like where to go next to get your prescription, or how to file paperwork, like such as like just simple stuff where it was just like the name, address, phone numbers and stuff like that, where our parents couldn't do it, and we were at a young age that we were going to school and we're in the process of learning how to write our ABCs at the same time too, and so we're kind of caught up writing. I would say not that educated yet, and we're filling out these forms and we don't really understand anything.
Yeah. And add on to that, like just reflecting recently, and I know Cassie was part of this amazing documentary by Viet Lee. It's called Taking Roots. It highlights all the failed refugee resettlement process that happened to us in the city of Philadelphia. And it was aired in the Tribeca Film Festival that highlight the disparity and the issues and the solution as well. It's called Taking Roots and produced and created by Viet Lee.
Thank you both. Yeah, I recommend if you want to learn more about Southeast Asian refugee history resettlement in Philadelphia to watch that film. Next slide, please. Okay, and so this starts the process of how CGP comes about, because there are all these needs of the Cambodian community. They realized that, okay, well, if nobody else is here to help us, we have to help ourselves. And so they recognize that there has to be cultural and language support. So learning how to speak English, but also learning how to read. So something that is very unique to our refugee diaspora history is that because the war took place during the time that our parents would have like finished high school or finished college, that many of them didn't finish learning how to read in their own languages. And so when they came to America, and there's, you know, the assumption that, well, okay, if I find translation for you, maybe that'll help. It's not quite the same. There's basic and urgent needs for social services. So like Peng was saying, a lot of the children who were born or growing up with their parents, they were the ones who had to be the translators. And of course, when you're 8 years old, you don't know a lot of the words and even how to say it in your parents' language. So that became another need. Community health navigation, again, trying to figure out how to apply for healthcare services, where to go, what paperwork you need to show that you're in need. Cultural dance and arts programs. So of course, when parents wanted to continue the cultural arts of you know, Khmer traditional dance, there wasn't a place to go. They didn't know where to sign their kids up or to even learn. There's also children and youth development programs, so like daycare, after school program, out of school, after school. There's the Legacy Project, which I know that when I talk to people and I say elders, I know that it's something that for Asian people, it's normal. But then when I say it to other people, people are like, what do you mean by elders? So we mean like the older people in our community who we look up to. We obviously pay them respect because culturally being older means you're wiser, but also because they were the ones who got us here to America. And so we obviously always are trying to find ways to keep them engaged, but also as the world is changing and technology is introduced, to make sure that they are always aware of resources. One big need that came for us was during COVID, because many of them were not digitally literate. And, you know, if we're all told to stay inside, how are they supposed to find information on, you know, where to go for COVID shots and, or, you know, updates, the right updates. Civic engagement and advocacy, again, something that is unique to our community is, you know, because we're refugees, because we came from a civil war, because the Civil War was a government between, you know, people fighting for democratic freedom, but also the past, you know, kings, you know, so, you know, we get to America and everybody is like, oh, we're going to come knock on your doors and, oh, census, we're going to come ask you information. And so it's trying to be advocates for our community and say, we don't do things like that. You don't go up to people and ask them information about how many people are in your house. You can't just knock on people's doors and say, are you going to vote? Because, you know, some people have never voted before. Voting isn't something that we've done. So being advocates for our community lets obviously city and state agencies know, like, it's not a one-size-fits-all program. You can't just say this worked for the Chinese, this worked for other Asians. We're a different group, and you're going to have, if you want to work with us, you're going to have to do things differently. Next slide, please.
You want me to add on this?
Go ahead, Noreen.
So I think, again, it's to add on to what our cultivator had mentioned, you know, because of, you know, the war in Southeast Asia, you know, our displacement, but the reason why we're here in America is because, you know, US was over there, right? And it really promoted a lot of, you know, destabilize our Southeast Asian country. And, you know, Cassie had mentioned when people knock on the door for, like, when we do advocate, when folks knock on the door trying to ask people to vote or get them resource, the last time someone knocked on a door within our community and back in Southeast Asia, they would rip apart from, in Cambodian per se, is like rip apart from the Khmer Rouge and was never seen again, ever again, and killed in genocide. So this level of so much, you know, destabilization within our country caused a distrust within, community members trusting governments. The last time they spoke to a government slaughtered and killed them over there in Southeast Asia and Cambodia and Laos and Vietnam.
Thank you, Naren. Yep. So we're here to talk about what we're here for. So most people have just started finding out about the Southeast Asian market, but our community, we've been vending for years. We have been selling our foods to each other. And so when the first refugee settlers came, nobody knew what Cambodian food was. Nobody knew where Cambodia was. Nobody knew where Southeast Asia was, right? And so we did have some early entrepreneurs open restaurants, but they quickly closed. Or, in the case of for the Lao community, we basically had to open up as Thai restaurants because people didn't know where Laos was or what Lao food was, but people knew what pad Thai was. And so we sort of had to do things like that. And so the only way we could really successfully vend and share our food with each other was to basically become our own vendors and sell, right outside of our houses, at the temples, basically where any community, Philadelphia community was. And so in South Philly, we have 7th Street, which is unofficial Cambodia town. There are small streets where ladies still sell. And if you know, we're not going to tell anybody because, we don't want it to become, we don't want it to become impossible to get to, especially when you realize how popular the Southeast Asian market is in FDR, and you're like, I'm just going to go to the lady down the street because then I don't have to wait so long. In Northeast Philly along Tacony and I never say it right. Tacony Creek. I'm from South Philly, so I never say it right. No, there's Tacony and then Tacony. But there's again, here's another green space where our people are gathering because, we're so used to jungle. And so you come here to the city and we're like, oh, I need to escape to something I'm more familiar to. And so again, one of those areas off of Old York Road. So again, in the Logan section of North Philly, which used to be a very vibrant Cambodian community, there was restaurants. I think there's only one store left there still, but there used to be, again, when we first resettled, there were people who started opening up businesses, and that's sort of the hubs where our community could go and be seen and buy things. Mifflin Square Park, which there was a small percentage of time in the 90s where people were selling, and then it kind of just went away. And then of course Spectrum Park, which is actually FDR Park. And so if anyone here grew up in Philly in the early 80s and 90s, you'll recognize Spectrum Park as being the Spectrum Arena. And this is really significant because our community, when we started recognizing the vendors who were selling in FDR Park, we didn't call it FDR Park. We don't know how to say it. The R was kind of hard. Roosevelt was even harder. And so we just said the next best thing that was most recognizable, which is we just said Spectrum. And so even to this day, we still have elders who say Spectrum. And even me as being a translator for the Lao community, I don't even say FDR Park. I just, I just translate Spectrum because they know what I'm talking about. So, even though the market has only begun to come into recognition these past couple of years, our community has been selling for the past 40 years because we've been trying to sell to each other, to support each other. And, there's a culture with our community where, if somebody's selling something and she's really good at it, support her, or, I know that I can count on this lady to make the best spring rolls. There's never a thought about, where is your license? Where is your storage front shop? And so we sort of support each other in that way. And we have been supporting each other. Peng will probably tell you, as being a native of South Philly, we were very lucky that we lived so close to FDR Park because we could just, get in our cars, drive for 5 minutes. Whereas Naren, who grew up in North Philly, had to wait until one of us made that round to tell him like, hey, come down right now. And hopefully within like the 30-40 minutes of driving from North Philly to South Philly, that hopefully the lady was still there. So it was a magical time back then. I don't know if you want to add anything, Noreen or Peng.
Yeah, I would say did. I guess, having that spectrum, I would say it was more like we didn't really know too much of this technical stuff now, but it was more like, I would just say healing for everybody, especially the old folks that they go out there, they meet each other, they find each other, they talk about, the whole war trauma, running from places to places, losing family members. And that's how they kind of connect with, they connect and find family members through, I would say, the spectrum, the FDR Park.
Yeah, and again, what Peng and Cassie had mentioned, all you see our community is like located in different areas of the zip code of our beautiful city here, and a lot of these foods, like we started preparing food and selling food, was really also making food accessible and affordable as well too. We at that time we didn't have much, and picking blueberries, for like $1, $2 a crate didn't really feed the family. And many of them, our community members that's selling the food, it was like on IOU basis, until we get our welfare check to pay back. And really, as in the Lao and the Cambodian community, really relentlessly rely on each other to make ends meet and to feed on each other. And Spectrum, the park itself, it's like was really critical. And what all of us have mentioned, is a green space, and that's what we're used to. And part of it is just like healing from the trauma of war, and also being a whole conclave of this is where the Southeast Asia community made up and really exchanged their food and service, and just to reconnect with the seniors, and just to, because there was no other space available other, than that beautiful park there at FDR Park. And we're still constantly impacted by the war. Many of our communities still in the poverty line, and with this work we're here is going to really move things forward in a very positive way that's rooted in communities.
Someone had mentioned saying something about the photographs. So their early photographs that are in black and white from the first 5 slides, they are by Harvey Finkel. Harvey is a photographer who has documented communities, and so we're very thankful for him for recognizing that there was a community to document in the early 80s, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to have any of this. So we're going to go to the next slide, which talks about the the start of how the market becomes organized. So again, the first vendor, it was a Lao lady. She just sold out of her van. Because people were just selling here and there, there's no documentation. In my work of interviewing with the vendors and trying to coordinate a history, I think the earliest agreed upon year is 1988. And when they sold chicken wings on a stick for 25 cents. So if we want to talk about how far back the market goes, and talking about that's basically how far we've come. Because like I think chicken wings on a stick now are like $2. But anyway, so it started with the lady, and then another lady popped up. And so for the early 80s and the early 90s, it wasn't really a market still. It was still just us driving into the park, looking for people, making sure that the people weren't just a large family barbecuing, that it was a lady selling. And if you saw a line, if you saw people with cash in their hands, then that this was the right place. And at the same time, they weren't public about it yet. So you really had to look. You couldn't just do one loop around. You definitely had to drive into and look behind the tree, and make sure that the gathering that you saw was what you were looking for. And then of course, because they're unlicensed and they don't have permits to sell, there was lots of raids. So even as customers who are coming to the park to see them, we were also very fearful that us being there meant that we would also get arrested too. And so a lot of times we had to rely on calling each other. And back then we didn't have cell phones, so we had to make sure that one person went, and when they got home, called us, and then we called each other. Even picked each other up and said, okay, we're all going to go together. A lot of times the police raids, they weren't, it wasn't just a simple fine. Sometimes it was just destruction of property, people just throwing away people's grills, throwing away the food on the street so that it couldn't be sold anymore. And so what we would do is, we would let other people know, hey, like this got raided, so we can't come anymore. So we would stay quiet for a little bit, but I don't know if you ever had papaya salad or beef sticks. It's delicious. And you just want it back. And obviously people are going to call the people who make it and say, are you selling it yet? Can you come back? Is it safe? And so we just kept doing this over and over. And we realized that if the only thing the police were going to do was just destroy property and confiscate stuff, we could come back. We were refugees. We left our country with nothing. So this we can survive and keep going. Noreen, you want to say anything?
Yeah, so it's again, speaking on the police raid and no communication between local and government as well, and also there was no community-based organization that want to support us. Although Cambodian Association was created and everything, but all of us still experience a lot of war and trauma. One of the unique things that really happened there at Spectrum Park, I think one of the early founders, I think CAGP created, there was so much gangs and division in that area that they created, a soccer tournament there at the Spectrum Park. And all of our community was through sports and food and finding the loud lady in the band, having the papaya salad and also I would say it's like the Southeast Asian Kool-Aid and then the sandwich bag with the rubber band was a unique thing and a culture that, it was a sense of community that we just conjured up in that area that really promote a lot of our healing and our growth as well. And volleyball as well. And you want to say anything?
Oh yeah, just saying being at the Spectrum at a young age and just to get away from the inner city, I would say my neighborhood, it was filled with I would say a lot of gang activities going on here. Just being able to go to the park and just running around or just, having your parents just, they meet up with friends and they're talking, they're healing. And me as a kid was just being able to go out there and meeting new people, new friends from West Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, basically just finding that, I would just say just meeting new people and just getting away from I would say the neighborhood that was really bad for me. And also I would say all my other friends as well too. It just gave us a peace out there instead of just being out here running the streets and running around.
I'd also say having the vendors at this park is the one thing that we as Southeast Asians could claim. Whenever I met friends who were not Southeast Asian, I would always bring them here, and this is their first time here, and it's something that we could say oh, this is our thing. We know about it because these are our aunties and uncles, or these are people we know, and we're the only people that know where it is. So this was really a great thing that we could own ourselves. So Justin was saying that we might run out of time and to skip the AJ Plus video, which would have been the time that we showed it here. So I don't know if there's something, if you want to just view it on your own time, but it does talk a little bit about, a little bit of the history of police raiding food vendors. But it's up to you guys.
We have until 11:30, so we have another 5 minutes. So
Okay,
if you'd like
all right.
me to run,
Yeah.
to show it.
Yeah, the
Can I
video
share it
does
here?
really show what the market looks like and feels like. So that might be a fun thing just to show here before we get to the questions.
This is me completely losing control of myself at what some say is the biggest Southeast Asian street food market in the US. Hi, I'm Yara, and I'm in Philadelphia's FDR Park, where the city's Cambodian community brings together immigrants from all over Southeast Asia to host an utterly massive, open-air Southeast Asian street food market. But this market has a secret. In fact, it was a secret because for decades, Philadelphia's Cambodian street food vendors operated under the radar. They didn't have permits for their food stands. And that's where things got dicey.
We would get handcuffed, thrown off the table, just kicked to the side, just tell us to go home.
Selling food on the street has long been a way for immigrants to earn a living in the US. It's also why America's food scene is so dynamic and exciting, but it comes with its own challenges.
She's just trying to sell some stuff. This is ridiculous.
So how did this community, survivors of war and genocide, manage to keep selling, sometimes in secret, for so many years? And how are they now taking control of the narrative?
I refuse to let anyone take this park away because this is our home.
Let yourself shine
sorry.
with new lighting from Lance
have an ad.
Plus. During our half price days and
Okay, but first things first, what does a massive Southeast Asian street food market in the US taste like?
This is the old school Cambodian style barbecue.
That's Jenny Nam. She's one of the main organizers behind the market and came here from Cambodia as a refugee.
So this is your every weekend market at FDR Park. We're a huge market.
76 vendors.
76 vendors. Every culture, every diversity of different coming in, cooking, grilling. They're serving like all types of papaya salad, sticks, chicken on a stick, papaya salad, beef sticks, chicken on a stick.
But wait, why are there so many refugees here from Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam? Time for a little bit of history. Well, the entire region had been torn apart by a war people in the US called the Vietnam War, but is known in Vietnam as the American War. The carnage spread to neighboring Cambodia and Laos and led to an influx of refugees to the US. But more on that later. First, let me show you some of the incredible food this refugee community is serving up. There's meat skewers,
chicken gizzard. I love gizzard. Gizzard, 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 gizzard.
All right. Next, shrimp cake.
Ooh, that's very good. That's very good.
And apparently I couldn't stop shouting either.
That's very good.
Then these beautiful steamed buns.
Oh, ooh, a lot of pepper in here. It's so good and it's sweet. Is that an egg?
And tart fried bananas. Mouth-watering noodle dishes.
It's very good.
And out of focus, but super sweet, salty, spicy papaya salads. And then there's Jenny's booth.
This is stuff we got from Florida.
Yep. Jenny not only serves as treasurer of the Vendors Association, which puts on the market every weekend, but she also operates a booth selling
sugarcane juice
with her family. And yes, you heard that right.
This is stuff we got from Florida.
Jenny will drive over 2,000 miles to Florida and back just to pick up sugarcane for the market. And that's on top of a regular 9-to-5 selling insurance.
So my family is hardcore business.
But this market isn't just a side hustle for Jenny. It's a crucial part of her family and her community's story. During the Vietnam War, Cambodia was decimated by covert US bombing campaigns attempting to disrupt North Vietnamese supply chains running through the country. In April 1975, days before the end of the war, the Khmer Rouge took control of Cambodia amid the chaos and anger over the US bombing. They then proceeded to carry out a genocide, killing between 1.5 and 2 million people. Cambodians who were able to flee to the US as refugees, about 150,000 people, settled all over the country, from Long Beach, California to Lowell, Massachusetts, and of course, here in South Philly, where many Cambodians took to selling street food to make ends meet.
This is where we came. That was a little girl. And I remember like my parents would just come and let us go run around and buy our food and eat for the day. And what troubled me was we didn't have a place to go back home. We had nothing. We basically laid a mat and slept through the night because we didn't have a place to go back. I remember as a little girl, like just watching someone grilling it and then turn around and I see the police coming by and just pushing everything to the side.
Throwing all the food.
Throwing everything to the side and saying, hey, go home, go home.
When we talked to other folks at the park, we heard the same thing again and again.
They come in with the big dump truck and dump it all out.
No, they would take.
Yeah, the whole thing.
They would just dump it all in the trash?
How many times you change grill? 5 times.
Wait, they would take the grill?
They confiscate everything.
We asked the Philly Police Department for comment, but they said they wouldn't respond to general questions of quote unquote alleged incidents without knowing the exact details. They referred us to the city's licensing department, which states that unlicensed vendors will face having their items confiscated and disposed of. So why didn't the vendors have food permits back then? Members of the community say the answer is complex, and it's tied up with the story of how Cambodian Americans ended up here in the first place. We met up with Sarun, a well-known community leader, to learn more.
All right, so Sarun, yes, tell me, where are we right now?
We are currently on South 7th Street Business Corridor, also known as unofficial Cambodia town. During the influx of Cambodian refugees in the 1980s, we were pretty much dumped in this area. Started off with only 2 or 3 different stores, but we blew up to having 40 different properties in the circumference.
And tell me about your history with immigration.
And I was born in a refugee camp myself.
Oh, wow.
A lot of my friends are all refugee born. I'm 35 years old, so it's really close, you know, in terms of time. Being a refugee, you're being pushed around in a refugee camp. Then you're placed in the inner city. There's intimidation from your neighbors who don't understand your background. A lot of us barely speak the language, right? Culture shock. The thing that distinguishes us from immigrant versus refugees is that refugees have a lot of PTSD, a lot of trauma, mental health illness.
While there's no single reason why newly arrived refugees didn't have permits, it's easy to see how that might be, given a mix of language and literacy barriers, trauma, and distrust of government authorities. But for me, personally, it also begs the question of why this sort of informal street vending is so common in almost every city of the world, yet so aggressively policed in the US. A lot of working-class immigrant families who've gone through God knows what to get here, who sometimes end up here because of this country's very actions, well, they often have to find a quick way to make extra money and survive in this new unfamiliar place. And frankly, it's not always through the channels that more privileged folks have access to.
The thing about our community is they're refugees. They're on survival mode no matter where they are, right? So you take away their livelihood, they're gonna pop up somewhere else.
It's a similar story for many immigrant vendors across the US.
What's going on? Why are you taking her away? Why are you taking her away? Y'all, she's crying. You're taking her away, she's crying. What's she doing?
Man, it's back now. It's legal to sell food inside the subway station.
This is fucking ridiculous. She is fucking powerless right now.
But things are starting to change, on paper at least. In LA, officials are taking steps towards regulating and legalizing the city's 15,000 strong street vendor community. In New York, where cops and street vendors have clashed so many times before, police will no longer be in charge of overseeing the city's famous food carts. And here in Philly, after decades of failing to push the Southeast Asian market out of the park, the city is now working with the community to give it a proper home.
What we've worked to do here is move from a space of confrontation to a space of celebrating what is good about it.
This is Justin, the director of FDR Park. He's working with Vina, a pillar of the Cambodian community and a longtime vendor here at the market.
I didn't get a chance to work because my husband was disabled. So this is the only income that I can make a little bit for a living.
Now there's a different relationship that the market has with the city, and it's no longer being seen as illegal.
There is an incredible food culture that is happening here in the park. This is an incredible gathering place, and that's something that a city should work to make permanent, make real, and make sustainable.
Long-term, the city's plan is to establish a market pavilion in the park where vendors can sell freely without fear of being shut down for not having a permit.
My grandmother was born in Sicily, so I know from my father that experience of fighting to become American. 100 years ago, there was another unlicensed food market happening on 9th Street. It was the Italian market. Folks in that community got organized. They wanted to have a permanent hold for their food culture, and it's now one of the greatest tourist attractions in the city of Philadelphia. I think it's an incredibly American story.
It's that same spirit of resilience that's seen the Southeast Asian market blossom into what you could say is one of Philadelphia's cultural landmarks. It's a living record of a community's determination, not just to survive, but to build something everlasting, something that honors the past and celebrates the future.
Now I see the park rangers, I get along with them. They come in and buy the sugar canes and they like, Jenny, what's the best beef stick? I want this, I want to try that. I'm like, wait a minute, that was not the case back then.
Now they want to be part of the market.
Yes.
You always have to have the light and the dark together, right? We have our struggles, but we also have our accomplishments. We have people shoving our grills down to the ground, but we come back up and we'll pop back up like daisies every time.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks for playing that.
There's still more presentation.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get through it quickly so we can do Q&A.
Yes, let me get back to where we were.
Yeah.
you'll have to remind me what slide we're on.
Yeah.
All right.
We were.
Yeah, maybe we can
Oh,
just
one more-
start
one
here,
more up.
Kat. Yeah.
Yeah, one more up. One more previous. Yeah. So yeah, so you guys all saw Vina, who was on the video. So she is one of the founding members of the Vendors Association. So again, like I said before, it was just vendors here, vendors there, and then all of us, you know, at some point it was like, why don't we just work together and, you know, talk to each other and let each other know like who's going to sell, who's going to be where, who's going to be there. So when the city of Philadelphia lessened their police attacks on vendors, we were able to become more organized. And so at this time, the market grew. People were no longer fearful of, you know, buying from them or, you know, parking their cars here. But we still had interactions with other, you know, park goers or people who felt that we didn't belong. And so, you know, we just kept this community building to ourselves. And so we're going to go to the next slide, which is how we all met. The story of how we all met. So, the Philly Parks and Rec appoints a director for FDR Park, Mr. Justin. The market finally has a contact person, a partner in the city being, you know, Justin, being our liaison. And with forming the Vendors Association, it helped so that the vendors themselves were recognized as a group, as opposed to random people popping up here and there. And, you know, we were able to get them to trust that this new person that has been hired for FDR Park, that he's going to work with us so that you can sell comfortably and freely and, you know, without worries. But of course, with a partnership means that we have to work together. And so with Justin communicating that, you know, you have to help us keep the park clean, you have to help us with the traffic, with telling customers, visitors who are coming to the market and the park where to park. In addition, CGP joins as a nonprofit, and we help look for grants. And one of the first grants that we got was the Knight Foundation, which helped to secure my position. And in addition to the market becoming recognized as a market, it becomes this community hub. And so there are things like the Rally for Anti-Asian Hate, like we held that there in the spring of 2021. We've had book bag giveaways. We've had other organizations when they're thinking about distributing materials for deportation or how to register to vote, or even other city agencies like PICO or SEPTA even, they're recognizing that there's a community here at the Southeast Asian market that if they want to tap into those underserved communities, that the market is the place to be, because that's where our community is. And so, so now the market is the market.
And Kathy, could I add just a little bit here? And this is just to share some lessons or for what I've learned from this process from the city perspective. We're achieving something here that I think, as that video showed, is hard to achieve. There's not a lot of precedence for informal, unlicensed markets being run, you know, informally by community making the transition. You know, we have to look back very, very far to find examples of this succeeding in Philadelphia. So a couple things allowed it to happen here, and I would broaden it. It certainly helped to have a person on the ground, but it did start with our mayor, Jim Kenney, coming to office with a deep belief in the contributions that immigrants are making to the city of Philadelphia. And also him being a South Philadelphia native, understood this institution in FDR Park. Previous members, mayors, previous administrations didn't have an awareness of what this space meant to the community, but we did have a mayor who had that. And while we didn't have a solution to the problem, the Kenney administration marked the end of the raids. And I think a lot of this sort of traumatizing enforcement that was happening between the city and this community. However, the legacy of it was still there. People still felt it. I've heard that from jump. Everything that was shared here, you will hear from almost every member of this place being a joyful place and an important place and a community place but that joy being paired with fear that you could be kicked out at any moment. And certainly for refugee communities, you can see how that would be a very, very powerful and reactivating kind of fear. So we got past that, but to get forward, we had a lot of trust working built to do. I want to just be clear to this group, we didn't start day one where the city shows up and said, okay, new partnership now, right? Okay, like I know this happened in the past, but it's all going to be different. It was that first year, which was the 2020 year, very difficult year, was really just about showing that we as a city were here to support this market. It was about me and my team showing up every day with market leaders like Jenny, like Vina, with help from Narun and Peng as well, who were helping from the broader Southeast Asian community to start to build that relationship and say, okay, this is someone who cares about us, who's put in work. And the first move belonged to us as the city. We had to show good faith and belief that we were going to be here every day, not just show up at a meeting, but day to day, we're going to help make this market run smooth and operate, and that we were a partner. Based off of the strength of based off of that year of commitment, was when we could really sit down at the table and form the partnership that Katsia is talking about.
Yeah, and just on the same thing too as well as just to add on as well, Mayor Kennedy, his administration, prior to him becoming mayor, he had deep roots in Philadelphia when he was a council member. He worked heavily with the Southeast Asian community as it relates to the deportation of Laos and Cambodian members here in our great city of Philadelphia. He was the main person that really pushed a lot of policies around sanctuary city to be part of the to help immigrants and refugees. So there was so much layers just building up to that point. So when Justin come on board, there was so many communication about who is this new director and everything. The fact that Justin, the director here, had so much experience in community organizing and understanding through his leadership, really, how do we serve immigrants and refugee community in a way that is built on trust and also built on supporting communities to uplift and empower themselves. And I must say that a lot of the founders, Vina, Jenny, that really took on their grassroots leadership and self-organized their community to have a voice. And all these connecting parts from Justin leadership and Sarun leadership and Peng and Jenny all came together to really promote and build this trust. And at a point where now it's we want to share our history. We want to share our food and our culture. And it took a lot. It wasn't like Justin said, it wasn't an easy task. And this is what it really looks like when governments can support and invest in communities and impacted communities and vulnerable communities.
I just want to say this. I would say, I guess this is what great organization looks like, and with leadership as well too, and also from coming from the city and nonprofit and community, all working together, and hopefully, share this and have every other city or every other community build trust with each other, with government and stuff like that.
And I want to point out that pausing enforcement doesn't solve the problem, but it was fundamental, right? Like the pausing of enforcement left space for the organizing to happen, right? If you just pause enforcement there and we didn't do the organizing, that doesn't solve the problem, right? We'd still have these challenges of how's trash handling, how's traffic, how does unlicensed vending occur, but pausing it gave us room to do this. And I think that's an important lesson I want to share with folks here today. Sorry, thanks for letting me interject there, Katsia.
It's okay. I forget what happens after the slide.
And we got one more slide, maybe?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, look at all of us there if you could see us. So presently there is what we call the Soon Triangle. Soon is what makes up 5 of the letters of my position, which is the Southeast Asian Outreach Network. And so I think Sarun was trying to be creative by putting outreach as ONU together. But anyway, anytime you see Soon, that's what it means. Soon is also the word for park in Khmer. Suan is how it's pronounced in Lao, and I am imagining how it is in Thai as well. But that's the reason why you'll see Suan a lot. And so we call it the Suan Triangle, meaning it's the community of the Vendors Association of FDR Park. So again, the Vendors Association formed by all the vendors that are selling in the park. The Cambodian Association, which represents the nonprofit side of things, and trying to look for grants and trying to work with city agencies and making sure that they keep their promise that, you know, we are not going to shut down the market, and we're working towards a permanent home in FDR Park. And of course, the city of Philadelphia, as represented by FDR Park, so that, you know, we can all work together so that the park is still a park. The park is still a public place that families can go to, whether they're coming to the market or not. And regardless of what happens simultaneously when the market's open, that, you know, people don't have to worry that the market is going to be closed. Someone had asked a question about whether the vendors are licensed at this point. Some of them are and some of them aren't. And so what our jobs as the representatives for the vendors is to let the city know their issues in what they can offer registering. So, you know, we'll say to them, well, you know, there's no translation in Lao or Khmer. You know, how are our vendors supposed to know what they need if there's no translations? You know, you say, oh, you just go to this website here and fill it out. And a lot of them are not digitally literate. You know, if there's a way to have a caseworker or something like that. So it's basically our job to let them know what things work and don't work. I would also say that because some of our vendors have been selling for over 40 years, some of them are in their 80s. You know, they're not really thinking about opening up a business next year. They're kind of just okay with just selling in the park for the next couple of years, just spending their weekend and, you know, selling their plants that they've planted or, you know, things that they've knitted or whatever. And so that idea of everyone has to be licensed is not quite the answer. And so we are working on that. And I know that there's been talk about how can the Vendors Association, you know, cover for this small group of vendors who don't want to register because there's no need to, and how to also make it work so that there's no question as to whether the vendors that are vending in the market are supposed to be, or they have everything that they need that they're supposed to be in terms of legally.
What has gotten built over the last 3 years was a situation where it was kind of everyone just showed up and did their own thing. What has occurred now is there's an association. That association has deep ties with this large community. There is a vision that this community has developed about how they want to have a marketplace that is legal, that is permanent, that is supported. The coalition, that triangle, city government, the nonprofit partner, the community leaders working together, all with that same vision. That's the pieces that have happened. The Cambodian Association of Vendors have done a great job of getting folks through those processes of getting their serve safes, getting their city licenses. Now we get to the exciting last piece where the designers come in, and this is just what we started this year. That vision has now been incorporated into the FDR Park master plan. The home of this marketplace is there. We've just started the meetings to now start the design process for that market. That's the last piece. I would call that the infrastructure of legalization. Once we build the, you know, commercially certifiable, you know, stalls, marketplace, we have the running water, that's the last piece. And so often we start capital as the first piece in these projects. I think the reason this project is heading towards a remarkable success is we did the community work first. We did the coalition work first. We built the vision first. That took years. When you're doing community projects, that doesn't happen in the couple months that designers are often given to do this. It actually takes years of work with dedicated community leaders to build this community vision. Now we're at a point where the design of the marketplace is hugely important, but it's going to be the last piece that brings us to the permanent legal home and the transition of this community from being on the margins of FDR Park to center stage in a permanent way. And I think such a beautiful resolution or conclusion of this immigrant story or journey that we talked about today. So we're really excited. We work very closely, our coalition, with the Fairmount Park Conservancy, with WRT, who have been the architects involved in the master plan. We're just beginning to get into design for the permanent home of the market now. So we're at a very exciting transition in this journey to the permanent home.
Yeah, and also like, it's the add-on as well too, it's still a work in progress. I know I saw your text, Andy, worked together for so long within the communities, this is the extreme hardship of really what Justin and Cassie and President Peng have mentioned about how hard it is just to work with communities that's vulnerable, right? It takes time, it takes efforts, it takes continued, investment both from a public and private sector as well to make this permanent home happen. And that it wasn't overnight, like folks asked a question about, have our folks have, license or whatnot, through our triangle, we are working our pathway to formalization, and that's what the continue on work that we're continue on building to make sure folks that needs the license gets the license, but like, the 80-year-old that's just trying to sell her plant, we're working on creative ways and solution and working with our triangle and whoever that wanted to work with us to find a solution for our elders as well, because it's more than just generating so much economic for our city. It's a healing place, a place of belonging, a place where we share our culture, a place where we share our best practice and our experience, so that every communities of color, every communities that's in the city of Philadelphia and across the nation can really serve just as to see that this is what we did here in the city of Philadelphia and through our collective shared vision and partnership.
And I will just say, we as the city, we ask an awful lot of our design and planning professionals. We do. We ask you guys to be designers. We ask you to be community organizers. We ask you to be meeting facilitators. We ask a ridiculous amount of designers. And I think that what this here project shows is what the healthy balance should look like. You need community organizing and need community leaders. If you don't have those, it is too soon to be hiring the designers, if you ask me, right? That's my professional opinion, right? Like, you get the leaders first, you get your organizers first, you create a community vision, then the designers can come in and do their job, and they're going to do a great job. I know FPC and WRT are going to do a fabulous job helping this community achieve their vision of a permanent home. But I think this shows the healthy right sequence. It does involve time, it does involve labor, and it does involve building big coalitions. If you're trying to do something that has not been done before, where there's not a playbook or a script, I'm going to quote Jaws, you're going to need a bigger boat, guys. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you're trying to land the big one, you're going to need a very, very big and very strong team. And I think what we've showed today, I know this has been a big panel, but this, I think an entire, like a generation of Southeast Asian community leaders in Philadelphia have come together here to create something. And it's beautiful to be able to intersect and be a part of it from the city side. So, Kat, should we maybe switch to questions here? I know we got about 15 minutes left.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything left.
Yeah, and also as well, I just want to reiterate that, the vendor association itself, we are a volunteering board. There's no income going around this. We volunteer because we serve our community, because we care and love, our community, and also our great, amazing city as well too.
And also, we just want to show that this is what diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we talk about that a lot, but this is seeing it in action. I think that's right, Peng.
It's really amazing to hear the story, particularly when you get to hear it, out of the mouths of people who've lived it, right? It's not through a translation. So that's an interesting way to talk about translation too. I was also really interested to hear how the landscape of the park really made it feel like home. I think it speaks to placemaking and spirituality, and how a place lives in our hearts and souls. And I think as designers, we have to really pay attention to that. And then to hear you talk, it's a healing place, it's a cultural place, it's a place of best practice. That to me really, goes above and beyond the idea, right? That it started as a place for that, but also a place where people were trying to eke out a living, right? You were trying to solve your basics at the beginning: food security, safety, the community and cultural support. So thank you very much, and people will start, I'm sure, to fill questions into our chat. But I'm curious about two things, and obviously this is still a work in progress, and it will be a work in progress, right? And that's part of what makes it interesting. But are there any unexpected outcomes that you have right now? Of what's happened, and I know you're starting to become a national model. How does that feel?
I would say that so the answer to my question for the unexpected outcome is I would say how fast we grew on social media. I mean, we started as a vendor who was selling, and you had to like go and see her in person, and we didn't even have cell phones back then. You had to call and make sure you had it or whatever, bought for your friends. And now we have a website that tells you like the days that we're open, the times that our vendors set up. If people are are inspired to sell, like how can they also sell? And we actually have a 2-year waiting list for people who want to come and sell, because our vendors have been here for a long time, and if FDR says this is the amount of space you can take up in the park, then this is the amount of space you can take up in the park. And so if new vendors want to come, we have to say, well, until one vendor leaves, then you can come. But we have this program, the pop-up vendor program, which we allow people to come and sell for the day, because people are just so inspired. People are just so they want to be with us. They feel that they also are part of our community. And so that's a way of letting people who are budding entrepreneurs, or not even budding entrepreneurs, but people who have businesses that they haven't come this way with FDR to be part of the community. I would say that I think the positive response has been like very overwhelming.
Yeah.
This I didn't add this to this. This wasn't included in the presentation, but we did do a what do you call it? An economic survey in which we asked, in last year, we asked from June up until almost November, we asked people who are coming to the market questions that had never been asked before. Is this your first time? Is this your first time here? How long have you been coming? How much money do you spend? And what is it that you spend at the market? And like, how would you rate the parking? And so I was just really surprised to see, even when our season starts in April and it ends in November. Last year it did. That even in November, which is like the last bit of the market, that people were still coming in. They're like, oh, this is my first time here. Oh, I just heard about this market. And so the growth has been really exponential, especially this year. When we first opened in April, I mean, it was just like lines that I've never seen. And I don't know if it's because we first opened, or people were just fiending for papaya salad and beef sticks, and they couldn't get it in the wintertime, and they were just like, oh, finally. But it's definitely, that has been like one positive unexpected outcome.
I would just say in my career organizing, this is the most generous and giving coalition that I have ever been a part of. And I just think it speaks to how much this market and this place and this park move the hearts of so many people, that people put the amount of hours in. It is so many hours to have a coalition like this. There's no one person in charge of this market. It is a lot of people coming together to find shared space and shared vision. It requires so much time, and it is just really special that this is a place that so many people are willing to give so selflessly to. And that have to say it, that's a big part of the success here.
And Jen, it's generating so much, millions of economics for our, great city here in the city of Philadelphia, too, and it's becoming a part of, through our shared vision and goals. The message has been clear that this is part of Philadelphia history too, right? Folks can come into and grab their water ice, their pretzel, go to the art museum, run the steps, see Rocky Balboa statue, and have their cheesesteak, and finish off with a pie salad.
At FDR Park,
at FDR Park, and it's so much. We're talking about, it's like it's so fast now to the point where, like, for us, in terms of the, since the food and wine release, we have to really kind of slow down to to really support our vendors. And it would not be possible to like, our market manager, Kayla, our liaison, Roxy, park liaison, to make this fully operational, and our volunteer board and Justin leadership and our cultivator. It's just takes so much, time and also investment to make all this happen. And we when folks even ask, like, how come we need new vendors, it's not like when this market was happening, we didn't just want to create a market. It was a place for our survival, a place for us to come when God, to meet our community members, to share our food and our culture together. It wasn't like we wanted to create a market. It was just a survival.
It was survival. So do we have questions? I'm looking for raised hands out there. You can unmute yourself if there are questions. Eli, can you help me do the search? We have a big crew.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any new ones at this point.
Tavis, you still have the, I don't think we ever answered your question about how does it feel to become a national model? I don't know, Justin, do you want to talk about that? Because I know you took that trip to the other cities to see how their parks and rec operate.
Well, it is. I think that is an interesting question, Kat. We went up, and I almost experienced it a little bit as a parallel to FDR Park in New York City, and that is Corona Park in Queens. In their sports complex, surrounded by immigrant neighborhoods, a park that has had a lot of development, and the tensions that exist between immigrant vendors and who are unlicensed and established licensed vendors in the park is one of the defining challenges. There was actually recently covered in the New York Times. And just to see us finding a new way and a new path where we're figuring, like, we know we want this community and energy in public space. We want it. The avenues that we have set up to have commerce in public space often do not have room for the kind of community elders or the refugee and immigrant communities that we've talked about here today. And so developing a new model that is different from the regular, okay, we're throwing an RFP out there and we're hoping someone responds, but instead saying, no, here's our community, here's our community leaders, and we're going to react and we're going to build something that responds to their needs to get from point A to point B. I think that is really remarkable. And to go into the question that I'm seeing here about how do you build a coalition like this, and how do you do communities that can organize against gentrification? This is the most powerful thing you can do to prevent gentrification, I believe. The most powerful thing you can do to prevent gentrification of public space or a neighborhood is to have organized community leadership with a shared vision that's willing to stand for it together. If we had 76 individual vendors, each trying to do their own thing in FDR Park, we wouldn't see the success we're seeing today. It's the investment in leadership. And I think that really we as a city and this government and this administration really contributed by supporting and encouraging leadership. We really said, like, the path forward here is unity. The path forward here is a community voice, even if we're not controlling as government that community voice. Even if that community voice is going to find its own direction, that own vision, it's going to be more work for us as government to respond to it. But the best FDR Park is going to happen when the communities are organized and led. So I think government can't do the organizing itself, but it can be a partner and an ally to organizing. And I think that's the model here that we're seeing that I think other cities could learn from. And I do, to answer the question in the chat, I think that's an important way for government to help be a bulwark against gentrification and displacement, be a partner to organizing, support leadership, be comfortable with leadership coming back and asking you for things that are going to make you have to stretch and maybe be a little uncomfortable as government, right? We may get uncomfortable because the community is organized, but that's okay because we're going to get a better outcome and a better park as a result.
And it's like it's adding that paradigm shift, right? You look at decades ago, it was like top down, right? And now it's like bottom up, right? We're in the ground, we're rooted in the ground, and how do governments and organizations plant the seed and plant all the seeds and water and all the nutrients to make that ground grow, that community grow. and empower them to also sustain themselves as well too. And we'll add a resource investment, it goes a long way, you know. And
I see the question of how folks can help, and if DAG ever wants to plan a field trip day to FDR Park, I am sure we would love to show people on the ground. I know a bunch of people here on this call has already been to the market, but if DAG wanted to do that collectively, we would love to do that, and I'm sure there's a role for DAG in helping now that we're in the design process. There could be ways that we could work together as we try to build out the community skill and understanding of this really important design process we're coming into. So yes to help. We say yes to help here. We're not like, this isn't a closed coalition. It's a big coalition. So we're always looking for more folks.
I see some I guess messages. So if you guys want to help out with the book bag donations and stuff like that, we'll send you guys the link.
Yeah, we're having a big book bag giveaway this weekend. We also I think Tavis, you've been really great. You added our website, so we always try to add our events there. I probably updated more on social media than the website. I do my best, but if you follow us on Instagram, which I think is just C-Market _ FDR Park, and then I think on Facebook it's our full name, but that usually will have everything that we're putting on in terms of events. Somebody asked if Visit Philly is helping us. Yes, they've promoted us. We do tours. So we do our own individual tours if people, want to request, like, oh, it's my birthday and I have like 10 friends. But we also work with Fairmount Conservancy, who has been organizing these tours for the past couple of years, where strangers come together and we all sample things from the market. It's been a really helpful tool with the vendors, because a lot of times, for the past 35 years, it was our own community coming to talk to each other. And so we knew what the food was, we know what it's called, but now there's like a whole new base of customers and they don't quite know what things are. And again, the vendors they don't know what they're asking, and so we're trying to get them to practice recognizing the questions for, is this savory? Is this sweet? I think one thing that came up was like thinking about the words that we use. So for the past couple of years, we say beef stick. So when the vendors hear a word that sounds like beef stick, they know they're talking about beef sticks. But if somebody comes along and says, do you sell skewers? It might throw a wrench and they're like, what, skewer? Do we sell that? What is that? But we take it for granted because we know what the word is. But again, it's one of those unique perspectives of our immigrant community, learning the words and learning to meet with people outside of our community, and being entrepreneurs and like having to talk to this new group of customers that are coming. So
I think that's a really good point to bring us to a close right now. If folks want to turn their cameras on, we do our round of applause at the end of these Zoom meetings. I thank you guys for coming on and being a part of this. I'll be down there on Saturday, so I'll come say hi. As a design challenge, it's a fascinating one for us as designers to not make our own decisions, but have the decisions so well considered and laid out for us that I'm really excited to see where everyone takes this process. So follow on Instagram, check out the website. And then check out the DAG website, because we have 2 months of upcoming discussion and debate about the Sixers arena and where that is headed. This recording will go on our website. So if you go on the events page of our website, this will be available there. So you can watch it again, you can share it, you can pass it around. Otherwise, we will see you everyone in roughly a month's time, and if not sooner, at the market.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And I'm including my contact information in the chat if anyone has any other questions or would like to follow up.